Hello, everyone, and welcome to SharePoint Power Hour. I'm Laura Rogers, and I have Joelle Jobson here on audio.
Hello, everybody.
And this is our weekly show we do on Wednesdays, and it's all about things you can do in SharePoint and Office 365 without being super technical, but it's a lot of just business user and power user topics. So there's so much going on in Office 365. There's always a lot of sometimes new things to talk about and sometimes just interesting things we figured out to talk about. So, and I started just in the last few months, I started sending out the newsletter the day before with voting in it. So you all can vote on what the topic is. So today you all voted for the topic of importing importing an Excel spreadsheet to become a SharePoint list. And this one's interesting because this is something that you used to be able to do in old SharePoint, in old classic SharePoint, since forever. And it ended up over the last couple of years being, I think the modern browsers are really what kind of broke it. So as the browsers, I don't know, I feel like every time there were updates to browsers that it broke it even further. And you used to kind of be able to hack, right? to kind of do a hacky way of doing it, or you could only do it in Internet Explorer, and you could still kind of import from a spreadsheet to SharePoint. And then it just it just disappeared altogether, and you couldn't do it at all. So, and you could also copy and paste from a spreadsheet into a SharePoint list just in quick edit view. And so that's all back now. And they actually didn't just reintroduce exactly the way it was, it's improved. So this is huge. It's pretty exciting because it's actually much more intuitive and useful than it used. There are a lot of things that you kind of had to know before you imported your spreadsheet, and a lot of things you had to kind of do in advance to prepare the spreadsheet. You still have to do a little bit of that, but it's not as bad. It's not as much, and it kind of explains it as you go. So let me show you. So we've got this. Let me look at this. This is just a screenshot that I did. Here we go. I'll show you. So it explains to you what you need to do when you first start doing it. So before I even start importing my spreadsheet, you have to kind of think about your spreadsheet, and you have to know where it is, and you have to know it has to have tables in it, and you have to know name your tables and have a certain sort of structure in it. So as long as you know what a table is in Excel and you know where your spreadsheet is, you'll be able to import it into SharePoint to create a list. Now, why would you want to do this? Keep in mind that this is a one-time thing. This is not synchronizing a spreadsheet to SharePoint. This is just taking a spreadsheet and turning it into a SharePoint list and then using it in SharePoint instead of as a spreadsheet. So why would things need to become SharePoint lists? Think about anything in your company lists of things that people collaborate on. You might have a list of vendors that everyone in the department kind of adds and removes, contact names of vendors you all deal with and phone numbers, just information about the vendors. What I've seen happen before, and this is a true story where I used to work, was that the administrative assistant in the department had a spreadsheet of all the vendors, and she'd email the spreadsheet out to everyone, like 50 people in the department, and said, hey, everybody, update the vendor spreadsheet and email it back to me. And 50 people would email her back this whole spreadsheet, Joelle. You know what she did?
Oh, wow. That's
she
fun.
She printed them all out. And she spread them all around her desk, and she was manually going through every spreadsheet. Have y'all ever seen this kind of thing happen? So she was manually going through every spreadsheet and figuring out what the differences were and figuring out, who had done what, and then going back into the main spreadsheet and making the edits there. And this was like an entire day-long process. So things like that are pretty simple lists of things that people are collaborating on, you can create it as a SharePoint list instead, And so what I did was I just showed her how to import it into SharePoint as a list. And then you just send everyone the link to the list. And they all just go to the list and they each just edit things. You have version history, of course. You have who edited what and when. You even have, the row will lock if someone else is editing it. And it was, it just took a few seconds and it was a huge time saver. So
Yeah, it surprises me how all these years later, how many organizations still have processes like that. It always surprises me.
yeah, I feel like just so many things can be made more efficient. It just, things like that drive me nuts. And so many people still do just so many things in Excel, just huge business processes and big companies just run things in Excel. I love Excel. Excel is awesome, but for things like this example, it's just a great reason to have it as a SharePoint list. So what you would do in this case is you import it into be a SharePoint list, and then you delete the spreadsheet or just tuck it away somewhere, archive it. You don't need the spreadsheet anymore. You're just going to be using the SharePoint list. And think about things in the spreadsheet like maybe you have different tabs in the spreadsheet that are different. It's sometimes even the copies of that same set of data in multiple tabs, just sorted different ways and filtered different ways. And then people have to, when they make edits, they'll go to the different tabs and make the same edit in multiple places. Just so inefficient. So instead of things like tabs, and what you can do is just teach them how to create views in a SharePoint list, and just have the views, just show them how that's how you slice and dice and show, only a certain type of vendors, or show only new vendors, or so those kind of things are going to be really good for them to know. All right, so let's go ahead, and now that we understand the concept of why you would take something out of a spreadsheet and put it in a SharePoint list and the benefits, let's go ahead and look at how to do that. So I've got my just like a little demo site here. Okay, so this is my demo site. Now you're going to start at site contents. I noticed that when you create a new list just from the home page like this, you're not prompted with any of the new cool things. And we did a whole other Power Hour about creating I think we did at least we mentioned it in Power Hour before. We did a Power Hour about creating a list as a copy of another list. And that's also, you need to go to site contents to do that. So go to site contents and then click the new button and then click list, and then you'll be presented with this whole other interface. And Joelle, I'm not reading the comments, so just kind of interrupt me if somebody says something interesting or asks a question. But there's a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot of conversation going on.
Yeah, Craig was just asking, I don't know if this is something that you're aware of yet, just kind of getting started with it, but is there column types in Excel versus SharePoint that you've seen issues with during this process so far?
Not
so far.
No, not so far. I'm not sure.
Okay.
But I'll definitely show you a bug that I did already find. Okay, so you give it a name, and then in this case, you're going to click from Excel. So you have a couple of options. You can upload it from a file that's just on your desktop somewhere, or you can upload it from just a file that's already in your site. Now, of course, if you take a file that's in SharePoint and you make a SharePoint list out of it, again, those two things are not going to be connected anymore. You're going to want to get rid of that spreadsheet so your users aren't confused and they're not editing things in the same thing in multiple places, or they're not making changes to the spreadsheet after you already turned it into a list, that kind of thing. So what I noticed though is that I click to upload a file, and I have all these little my demo content and my little demo files, and it just sits here. So this morning before I was about to do Power Hour and I started kind of playing around with this, I'm just like, oh well, great, it's broken. So this one says it's basically the Excel file will be uploaded to the site asset library. So even if your spreadsheet is not already in your SharePoint list, this is going to put it in your library, it's going to put it in your site. It's going to stick it in the site assets library. So I noticed that this does not work. I walked away and came back 10 minutes later, and it still showed it was uploading, and it never put it in the site assets library, which it seems like a minor bug. But so that didn't work. I'm going to go cancel. It says it's uploading one item to site assets, but again, it never, it just never does anything. So it wasn't uploaded. And I'm going to refresh this page. All right. So what I did was I just have all these little example spreadsheets, and I just went ahead and uploaded them all to my documents library in here. And these are just all little sample things. Okay, so let's go ahead and I'll show you, go back to that. I'll show you what happens with, I'm just going to create a new spreadsheet and show you the error that you get if you don't have a table in your spreadsheet. And then I'll go ahead and do one correctly first and show you how easy it is. And then I'll show you kind of what you'll come across if you don't have a table in your spreadsheet.
It might be buffering a little bit.
Oh.
Yeah, it is. Because I heard your audio to me go a little wonky, and then I noticed I just went over to YouTube.
Okay.
And it's buffering.
I'm going to turn off the
Just
Facebook.
FYI.
I wonder if I should turn off the YouTube one or the Facebook one. Crap. I don't know which one's causing it.
I think the... Yeah, I'm not
Because
sure.
earlier, when I turned the Facebook Live one back on, that's when I got the high CPU usage error again. Crap. I'm going to turn off the Facebook one and see if that helps. I swear I hate these.
Sorry, Facebook people.
It's ever since
Go to YouTube.
YouTube started throttling their bandwidth because of... Which feed did they lose? Let's see.
Yeah, it's just YouTube is spinning.
What? Say that again?
YouTube is just spinning.
Oh, okay.
Like it's buffering. I mean, it's coming on and like it's just buffering at this time right now.
Maybe switch just to Facebook. Okay.
Yeah, we used to never have these problems. It's weird.
know. It's okay. Well, let me
I think it's
broadcast back to Facebook. Oh, and now it won't let me go back to the one I was in.
YouTube seems better.
Oh, it does? So it took a minute and now it's okay?
Yeah, because remember I'm watching on delay, so that
Yeah.
can be a little bit.
Yeah, see, Valerie, the problem with Teams Live is that there's no chat.
Yeah, you can ask questions in Teams Live, but you guys can't talk to each other. That's the problem.
Yeah, I love the
That's why
chat
we
in
don't.
here.
I think we answer that question every week.
I know.
Like we would use Teams, we totally would, but you guys can't talk to each other in Teams Live.
Okay, do you know, Joelle, off the top of your head, if they missed anything I was doing? I didn't really do anything yet. I was just talking, but...
I think that last part.
Okay.
Yeah, I would.
Sorry about YouTube. They started throttling the bandwidth, and so they didn't used to do this, and now it's all wonky. But all right, I guess it's okay now. We've got 45 live viewers. Okay. Now, I haven't done anything yet. Nobody missed anything. So I was going to go ahead and do this and do it correctly. And I go new list, I go from Excel, and then I was just establishing that this upload file thing doesn't work, but it's going to put it in your site assets library anyway. And so instead of clicking upload file, I just preemptively uploaded a bunch of spreadsheets to this document library just to show you all this stuff. But again, you don't want to have the data in two places and have people editing in two places. So once you've gotten it out of the spreadsheet into SharePoint, you might want to delete the spreadsheet. Okay, so pick a spreadsheet and go next. And then this is where it's looking for the tables in your spreadsheet. And that might break the bandwidth too, because it didn't take that long before. So it's depending on how complex your spreadsheet is and how many tables it is, it takes a minute to do this. So now it found the tables and it's fetching the table data. So here are all the different tables in this spreadsheet. Okay, so here's where it is guessing at what types of columns each thing needs to be. So in SharePoint, you've always got your title column. That's always there in every list, no matter what. That's not a column that you can delete. You can rename it though. So I could go into my list and actually create columns ahead of time and even rename the title column, because this is much better than it used to be. It used to just pull in all the columns as whatever they were in the spreadsheet, and then you had to go through and do a bunch of cleanup and renaming. But what you can do is you can actually create the columns ahead of time well, no, you can't create the columns ahead of time, but it's just showing that this is the title column, because the list doesn't exist yet. Because this is the title column that's going to exist that every list already has. So then every single column you have, you can pick what type of column it needs to be, and it's going to guess. So it's going to look at all these different columns in my spreadsheet, and it's finding the column headings, and it's guessing that all these need to be numbers pretty much. So I go to a different table in my spreadsheet. So each table would need to be a different group. So you can see this is text, 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 text. So this is all different types of data than the other table was. So you're going to pick which table you want to import. And these are just a bunch of people's names. And then pick which type of column each one of these is going to be, and then go ahead and name your list. So I'll call it, I'll just give it the same name as, whatever, I'll just put a space. I'll give it the same name as the table, and create. So sorry, I don't know why I said that you could create the columns ahead of time, Joelle, because the list doesn't exist yet. It's just got title, because every list is always going to have a title column. But you can rename the title. Okay, so look how fast that was. There's my SharePoint list. So then you can just go back to your site contents and then just do another one. And then it's just, now your data's in your in a SharePoint list, and you go delete the spreadsheet. Okay, so I'll go do this again. And what I'm going to do this time is I'm just going to create a new spreadsheet and show you what it's talking about with that whole tables thing, and show you what the tables look like. So I'll just go to documents and do a new spreadsheet just here in the browser. And there is going to be a limitation too. Yes, you're right. Mark, being able to define the column types on creation, that's a long time wish list. Yeah, see, they improved it. It's different and it's better than it used to be, where it would just dump everything into SharePoint and then you kind of had to figure it out and change stuff. And it is looking at the spreadsheet at what kind of data is in the columns to guess at what type of column each one is going to need to be. And of course you can change them. Okay, so this is going to be first, let's see. First column, second one, I'm just making up stuff, and third. And then I'll put some data in here. Let's put kind of different types of data in here. Okay, so we've got 3 columns and a couple of rows. Okay, so now I'll save this as test 2 and go back to my library. And I really just need to go back to site contents. So test 2 is going to be the one that I am going to try to import as a list. Oh, good question, Pam. If you create a new list, SharePoint list from an existing one, yes, you do get all the views with it, and you get all the relationships, and it will bring over the other lists from the relationship if there are any relationships in the list. Those other lists need to get created. Like if you have a task list that looks up to a document library with a lookup field, it will bring over the other one. And we did all that in another Power Hour. We went through a huge demo of that. I don't know what the name of the Power Hour was though. Okay, test 2, and I'll just say test 2 like that. And let's see if this works. Okay, it's looking for tables in my new spreadsheet I just created. I don't have any tables. So this is kind of that error message that I was showing you that I had done a screenshot of. It says select a table from this file. You don't have any tables in this file. You need to define tables to import as a list. So it's even got the steps. It says open the Excel document. You can do it from right in here, from this interface. You don't have to completely cancel out of this and then separately go open the spreadsheet. You can just do it right in here. Open the Excel file, select the cells, select the data and click format as table, and then just refresh this screen. So let's try that. Okay, so here's a shortcut to select the whole table. Just put your cursor somewhere in the table like I've done here, how this cell is selected. Control-Shift-8. Oh, Control-Shift-8 only works in the desktop version. Well, if you're in the desktop version of Excel, I always use Control-Shift-8 to it will just select the whole table like that. It will just recognize it. So there's my table, and then this button that they said to use to format it. See, the problem with this, I've got this wonky resolution on my computer, and this resolution is cramming everything up, so I can't, it's hard to tell. It's usually, this format as table is usually going to show in a very obvious way at the top of the spreadsheet. I've just got this really large resolution just for demo purposes. So what you're going to do is go find the button on, it's just on the home tab in Excel, and it just says format as table. And then when you format it as a table, you can pick a pattern to format it as. So I'll just pick this lovely green one. And you have to tell it whether your table has headers or not. Mine does. See, this row 1 is my headers. All right, now I have a table. So now when I go to this little drop-down box up here, it'll have table 1 as something I can pick from. So I can go way over here to cell H10, and then when I select table 1, there's my table. Now, you can't rename the table in the in this web version of Excel. So usually in the client in Excel, you can just say, you can just type right here in this box at the top left up here and just hit enter, and it will rename your table. But this one, it won't do that in this web version. Cool. So that's just called table 1. So I would have to go open it in the desktop app, go select that table. I don't know if I feel like doing that right now. And then just type the new name and hit enter in the desktop version of Excel. If you want to give your tables all names, if you have multiple tables and you need to give them all different names, you can do that. But table 1 is the generic name. Okay, so now, oh, did I exit out of, I was in the little interface that where I was importing it, and then I got out of it. So let me see if it left it in a tab somewhere. Oh yeah, there it is. So it had just opened me up in a different tab. So I can go back to here. I'm still on this little dialog, and I can just refresh. And now let's see if it will find my tables. Table, yeah, there it is. Let's see. Okay, so I've only got one table in my spreadsheet, and then it's telling me, see, it's guessing. So remember, so this is a weird one because remember I had typed these as dates. So this really, see, these were the 2 dates. So this one guessed incorrectly. It guessed that this column was a number, but it really is date and time. So that one, you have to kind of keep an eye on these. So this, I really don't want this first column. I want this to be a number, so I don't want it to be the title. So I want this second one. So this is kind of one of the choices to make, right? Do you remember doing this, Joelle, before? This was something you had to decide which one was going to be the title column.
Yeah.
So it is important because you do always have to have a title column. So think about, it has to be text. It can't be, you can't change title, be a number. So think about in your set of data, what piece of data is text that basically it's going to be the column that has like the drop down box, the little ellipsis on it in the list of stuff. And that's usually the one you click on to open that item. So that's like the main column for that list item that sort of defines it. Now, if you have a set of data that doesn't have you don't need any a text column, it's all just rows of numbers. You probably in Excel, I would go ahead and add an extra column and just type something, just put some kind of text in an extra column in Excel before you import it. And that way you can pick that one as your title column. And that way all the ones that need to be numbers or dates or whatever they are, then you'd be able to make those be correct, because if you let it pick your first column that is a bunch of numbers and make it be your title column, you can't change it to be a number in SharePoint. It's your title column is always going to be text. Yes, exactly, Paula. You can import an empty column and just call it title. That way you will at least have not have to lose one of your number columns to have it be text. Yeah. So, yep. Okay. So this is the one that's going to be, that I want to be the title. And then this definitely needs to be a number column. So I'll go ahead and create that. This may take a few minutes. Hopefully it won't take a few minutes. It's only got 2 rows. Okay, there we go. And there is my, there's my list. Okay, done. Well, so let's go look at, we can go look at, do a couple more of these. Let's see. Go look at a couple of these spreadsheets. I've got Q3 and Q4 expense trends, quarterly costs. These are all just little like sample spreadsheets I had downloaded at some point. So that's really interesting. It's got some sort of, so this table, see, I've got named tables in here. So this one is going to be focus group results, I think. Yeah, focus group results. So that's going to be the one that I want to be my list. So I'll just do another one. Which spreadsheet was that I just looked at? I think it was quarterly costs. Just call it costs. And go. So it's going to find all those tables.
Yeah, it was quarterly costs.
ADD. Okay, so then focus group results is going to be the one that had all those. See, this says date, but that picked that as the title column. Oh, look at it. Look at that. Did you see that it changed right before my eyes? It's like it had to take a minute to analyze the data, and then everything just rearranged itself. So it says title is participant. I think it was switching from the first table it had to the second one. And then age group, gender. Maybe, I can make this a choice. And it will automatically see what all the values in there and make those be the choices. And then this one's also going to be a choice, and that will be a choice too. I don't know what you do if you have more columns across the screen. Oh, look, there we go. And then choice. So this one's going to have a bunch of choices. Oh, thanks, Craig. So Craig posted the other power hour that we did. I think that's what that is, about the new list creation and creating a list from another list. Okay, so look at that. So now when I go create a new item in this new list I created, I've got my age group 4 to 5. And look, it created all these drop downs, and it automatically just looked at what all the data was in the list and turned it into drop down datas. And this is like a system field. I don't need that in here. And that's attachments, which I would usually, that's one of the first things I immediately do when I create a list. Is most lists in most situations I deal with don't need to have attachments, and that just confuses the end user. So I go disable attachments. And then versioning is another thing. It's not going to automatically have versioning. It will have it for libraries, but it won't have it for a list. So go turn on versioning your list too. And then here all the, I don't like the way I had the spreadsheet had them all in all caps, so I could go edit all those. But this was going to be like participant, which participant or something like that. I'll just go rename that. Okay, you can also copy and paste from a spreadsheet. So let me just, I'm just going to open one of these in the actual client software. I'll just open up marketing compensation report. Open, oops, not preview. Open in app. So here so if you have more data somewhere that you need to go ahead and put in that SharePoint list, if you, maybe what they did, I've seen this happen, was the spreadsheets you're importing from had data that was really the same structure, and they just had it in multiple tabs. So then you're trying to conglomerate, combine them together to be one big set of data instead of having a bunch of sets of data on different tabs. So then you'd have to import the spreadsheet and import that first table, and then once the list exists, then you're not going to go import spreadsheet again because you don't want to have a separate list. So then you'd go get that data like this and just go copy this and go to my list, which is where, this one, go quick edit, and then I gotta go add a new item. Oh, I don't want to do a new item form. I want to just paste it in there. There. So look, I just pasted. So as long as your data is in, it's the same number of columns, same structure that you can do from, that you have in Excel, then you can just copy and paste, and you can do multiple rows. So I could just go back over to here, and I could grab just a whole big other chunk of data, and this actually works now. There was a while there where it didn't work, right, Joelle? It was really frustrating because it's something that we kind of got spoiled with and got used to just copying and pasting from Excel to the quick edit view. And then we didn't realize how important it was till it was gone, right? So there you go. And then you exit quick edit. So the first time you bring your list over, you do the import. And then if you have additional data that really belongs in that same list, then you would just go into quick edit view and then copy and paste it from Excel into the list. Make sense? Y'all, hopefully you're thinking about inefficient processes in your company of things people do with spreadsheets. Maybe it's a pretty simple spreadsheet and could just be done in a list instead. Let's go look at that concept of creating tables too. Okay, so I'll go open this one in the desktop app. Okay, so here is my data that's in a table. Oh, here, there we go. It's actually a tab called data. And then what I can do is select that whole thing and also select, when I select sales data, it looks like the header row isn't even in there. It's not part of what the definition of the table is. Interesting. And then I can do another table, and usually this isn't you're not going to have tables next to each other. So I'll just do a new sheet. So first, second, date, amount. I wonder if it'll do a people picker. I wonder if I put an email address, if it will do a people picker. I doubt it. But we could try, just since we've got plenty of time to kill, right? We'll have to go look again at what those choices were in the drop downs and see kind of how maybe some of the more obscure data types would end up in there. So let's see, I'll actually type your email address in that tenant. I really don't want it to be a hyperlink.
Are you talking to me?
Yeah, I'm just
You
can't see what I'm doing, but
We're breaking up a little bit.
Oh, okay. Is it on Skype that I'm breaking up?
It looks fine on YouTube.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was just on my audio. So what were you telling me to do?
Oh, no, I'm not. I'm just typing data in here. And
Gotcha.
I'm putting various email addresses because I want to see how things might go into a people picker.
Oh, okay, cool. Sorry, I just want to make sure you didn't need me to go in and type something.
I'll go ahead in Excel and make this, go format cells and make sure this whole column is set as a number. And this will also affect how it goes into the list and what it recognizes that data as, and it will help kind of it recognize it the correct way. So this says date, but I'll go ahead and format it. And some of this stuff you actually had to do back the old way. You were forced to do this ahead of time to make it go into SharePoint correctly. I don't think the people picker was one of the choices in the little thing when you're importing data anyway, though. Okay, so now I've got this stuff here, but I need it to be a table. So I select this whole thing. And so here's that button that just says format as table. So I have my data selected. I say, yes, my table has headers. And now it's got a table. And now I can select my table. It just called itself table 2. And I can call this Laura test. Oh, it didn't. Oh, somebody said in the chat that it. Oh, wait, there it goes. That was weird. That it's like it gave it a second name. Somebody said in the chat that it doesn't work anymore or it's flaky. That is definitely flaky. Let me try and go somewhere else and come back. It says table 2, but then I called it Laura test, but now it's the same table and it's got 2 names. That is weird. Then I can go into data up here. This is going to get in kind of the nitty gritty here. I wonder if, I'm trying to remember where that little list of tables is. Maybe it's not in this section. From table. No, that's import. Anyway, I thought there was a button in here where you could actually, you had all of your names of all your tables. Okay, so it's named. So it's interesting. The same thing has 2 names now. So we'll see what that looks like when we go to import it. So this is my performance metrics, and I saved it. I'll close that one too. Oh, Lisa said try F5. Oh, sorry. Oh, I said no, you can't, but you can create a person field and then quick edit, paste them in. Okay. All right. Now I will close that file and go import again. And that was performance metrics. Oh, okay. Steve says name manager is under the formulas tab. Yeah, okay. The formulas tab. That makes perfect sense. I'll have to go back in there and look at that. Let me go I'm going to cancel out of this and go look at that. Thank you. I figured I had somebody in here that would be an Excel guru that would know that. Okay, formulas tab. I was looking under the data tab. And name manager, and look at that. So Laura test and table 2. Oh, look. Laura test equals table 2. Interesting. So instead of, what I did was I added a new name for it. So instead of trying to rename it like I did, a clean you would think would be to go in here and call it, I'm going to give it a completely different one. Okay, so now that's a cleaner way, is to go to the formulas tab and go to name manager. And instead, when you make it a table, it will just give it a name like table 1, table 2, but then you can go rename it in here instead of creating like an alias for it and have it still point to the original one. Okay, so there's my table. And let's do this again. From Excel, performance metrics. Okay, and then I need to pick, there's my range, or table. And then it's prompting me with different, see, this is a date. See, it still thinks that even though that was a date column and I even made it into date data in Excel, it still thought it was a number in here. So just kind of watch out for that. And then look, person is not an option in here. So I could just make it single line of text, or I'm just going to say do not import. So I'm going to try what Eileen suggested. So I'm going to add a column, person. See, there's still plenty of manipulation you can do with the data once you have it in, to be the SharePoint list. Okay, so then I have person, and then, let me go back to the spreadsheet. Where did it go? So any last questions about, I'm probably going to end up ending a little early, but any last questions just as I do this about this concept? And I know a lot of you who typically watch Power Hour are pretty advanced Power users, so this is probably not new to you, but any questions about how this works, or kind of how you do it, or ways to work in lists or as spreadsheets? Okay, so I'm going to take I could take all the stuff in this column, all the data, not the column header, and just copy it, and let's try this. I'll go to my performance list and go into quick edit. Now everything's still in the same order. I haven't sorted or rearranged anything. It's just sitting here in the order that I imported it. So let me try pasting it. Look at that. So look at that. That's so cool. So you're right, Eileen. I made it into a people picker. And then since those 2 email addresses that I pasted in from the spreadsheet those are people in my tenant, and I pasted them in, and it just recognized them and picked them in the people picker for me. Yeah. Stuart says, if using Flow when creating item, you can take the email as text and put it in a people picker. Cool. Stuart's, he's been using Power Automate for this kind of thing and using the compose function to get things to work. What else, Joelle? So that's the answer to the people picker, basically, is that you just can't pick it when you're importing it. So you would just not import that column and then skip it, and then go create a people field after you create the list, and then just do what I just did and copy and paste them. But you just got to make sure that you don't click any column headers and rearrange stuff. You just leave them. They're going to be in the order just of ID, in the order that they came in, I believe. Lise said, how about calculated columns? So what you're going to probably want to do is, if you have columns in the spreadsheet that have formulas, you're going to want them to end up being calculated columns in SharePoint instead. So that is a good thing we can try. That's perfect. Okay, so let me go open up this one in the desktop app, and let's see what happens. We're going to try that. Okay, let's see, number 1 and number 2, and added. So this is going to be wait, I keep typing the same numbers there. And then equals sum of that. Okay. So that is a sum column. So I'm just going to do this as a completely new list and see how it recognizes this calculated column. And it might depend on how complicated the formula is too, right? Because there are a lot of formulas that are common across both Excel and SharePoint, but then there are a lot that Excel has that SharePoint doesn't have. So that'll be interesting. So I'll close that and go back to, we'll just do a second list. Performance 2.
I know you haven't played with it yet, but there are some questions about how would you use this with Power Apps or Power Automate, if at all.
So what were the questions? Because in Power
just that.
Oh,
how will you use it with Power Apps or Power?
Well, in Power Apps, your SharePoint list is your data behind the scenes. So this is completely unrelated to Power Apps. I don't know how it would. I guess be more specific with your question, because importing data into SharePoint has nothing to do with Power Apps, because Power Apps just points to some back-end data wherever it happens to be, like in SQL or SharePoint or Google Sheets or wherever your data is. So this is just getting the data into SharePoint. And then you could create a Power App that uses this list as your back-end.
Yeah.
And somebody referenced here in the chat my blog post that I wrote using SharePoint, using Power Apps as a front end to SharePoint. So that's another good concept for you all to go read that one to explain those concepts too. All right, Laura, testing. And as I added those new columns, it actually recognized and added them into my table. So it looks like it's just going to put these as numbers. So actually this again needs to be changed to be a date. And yeah, it's just going to pull it in as a number. So there isn't an option for it to be a calculated column. So that's something you'll have to recognize, and it's just going to pull in as a static number. We'll go look at the list settings. So this is added and it's just a number. So you're going to want to either not import that at all or delete it after you import it, and then you'll have to create separately know to go in and create a calculated column. Just call it add them. That will add those two columns together. Number 1 plus number 2. And again, you'll have a lot of the same formulas. You don't even have an obvious list of what all the formulas are here on the screen. You just have to go basically Google it or Bing it and go look at, a lot of people have written about all the different formulas you can use in SharePoint. But a lot of them are exactly like the exact same syntax as in Excel, like an if statement. Okay, so now we have a column that is actually adding these numbers together. And if I go change them, I'll go change this from 45 to 46, then you'll see that my calculated column changes. All right. That's about it. Our next Power Hour is on July 15th. And I think we have some kind of, let's see. They're going to be doing GlobalCon 3. Let me get you all a link to that. Let me switch over to this and go get you all my link to that. the Collab 365 site is going to be doing a GlobalCon 3. And also I'll be speaking at the Atlanta SharePoint user group online virtually. Let me pull up my calendar and get that to you too. Sign in. And you all just type if you have any last questions about the importing from a spreadsheet. Any other details about the question about the Power App?
No.
Hey, don't put your link to the conference to GlobalCon. I'm going to put my link to GlobalCon. You can do that. Go get mine. It's a special link.
Use the special link.
There. Don't use the one that Mark posted. Because this doesn't have an affiliate link in it.
You deleted it. Thanks.
I did. I deleted it.
Oh, you deleted it?
Sorry, Mark. Deborah says, why not just post the Excel sheet in a shared library? Well, you could do that, but then you wouldn't have the version history and the different people be able to see exactly who edited what and just all those things I talked about at the very beginning. So it is a slight difference, but it's really just think about things that people are collaborating on where you need to be able to see the version history of who changed what and when. And you need to be able to have, slice and dice it with views and have just all the things that the way you use a list compared to having to deal with a spreadsheet. So it's not, it's kind of gray as to why you do one or the other. So that's a great question, Deborah. I should have mentioned that at the beginning.
And Larry asked, could import be done with Automate, Power Automate? And I guess, it wouldn't use this facility. You can import an Excel spreadsheet into a SharePoint list via Power. You can do that, but it wouldn't be using what we're talking about. It would just be using actions and Automate.
Yeah, you'd have to create the list ahead of time, so it'd be a little bit more work. And you have to do like a get all rows in a spreadsheet action. And then for each...
I've used that before, and it's very specific too. Like a lot of columns won't work, and you have to change them in the Excel spreadsheet. So definitely has some gotchas, but it is possible.
Yep. If you want to do more work, go ahead and do it in Power Automate. Okay, so one more time, there's a link to GlobalCon 3, and they're going to have another beginner day. So if you're a beginner, like brand new to all of this stuff, to SharePoint and Office 365 and everything, they have a whole beginner day that's next week. And that is on July 15th. That is the same day as Power Hour. But my specific session is at 4 p.m. Central that day. I think it's going to be the same exact one that they did at Beginner Day last time. So it's just beginner Power Apps basics thing. But it's everyone, all the different speakers are doing complete beginner topics on just a lot of different things in Office 365 and SharePoint. And that's different than the Collab, the GlobalCon 3 conference itself. That's the beginner's days, just like way ahead of time, just to kind of get you ready. Also, let's see, what else is on the calendar? The Atlanta SharePoint user group is the online thing. The virtual thing I'll be speaking at is July 20th at 5 p.m. Central, I believe. I'm not positive that that's the time. And anything else coming up, Joelle, that you can think of? Everything's virtual now, so.
Yeah. No, I think, those are the GlobalCon was the only thing I was really aware of. Are they doing, I should know this, so you all can definitely shake your fingers at me, but are they doing Ignite, like a virtual Ignite this year?
Yeah, they are.
Oh, they are, okay. I haven't been paying much attention, so I didn't see.
They didn't really put out a call for speakers or anything.
Okay, yeah.
And then GlobalCon 3 itself is September 8th through 11th. So the beginner day next week is way ahead of the actual conference. But yeah, go ahead and check it out and sign up. And thanks everybody for coming. We pretty much stretched it out to an hour, I would say, Joel.
I'm telling you, I'm
Yeah.
telling you, you could literally stretch anything to an hour. It's I commend you.
Just keep talking and talking. All right. Well, thanks everybody for hanging out with us. And it was a lot of fun. There's a lot of commentary today, so that makes this so much fun. That's the fun about it being a live show, is we're all chatting in Slack. And yeah, check out our courses at iwmentor.com. We have SharePoint Beginner, SharePoint Power User, which is all this stuff with lists and calculated columns and all the details about managing lists. That's all in our SharePoint Power User stuff. And we have courses on Power Apps and Power Automate, beginner and advanced. So yeah, and so thanks for mentioning that in the chat. Appreciate it. See everybody later.
Bye.
Bye.